Session will like to invite Mr. Jeet Vijay, who is CEO, Bhau Institute of Innovation, as a moderator for this session. Mr. Jeet. Our panelists are Ms. Smita Yedekar, CEO, One Mobility, and Mr. Dhruv Khanna, CEO, Data Resolve. I would like to invite all the panelists on the dais. To the chair.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I guess I can hear myself, so that's good, right? Yeah. Sorry, that's better. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this session. And you might have either skipped lunch or had to finish early to be part of this, but thank you so much for your attendance. And I'm really privileged and honored to be part of this panel here to talk about why certain companies succeed and certain fail, and the use case studies. And so with us today we have Dhruv and Smita, who both run their companies and will share with us examples from their experience of what they have done and how to navigate the challenging environment that they face. And before we launch into it, I'll just mention a few things. So we'll start off by doing a brief introduction, and we'll start with Smita and Dhruv, and I'll give a little background about myself, and then we'll go from there.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Try this.
Is this okay?
Yeah.
So as Jeet said, after the lunch, it's hard to attend any of the sessions, but thank you. So hopefully we'll be able to make it interesting and give you some insight. Just to give you a little bit, background of what we have been doing. We have been a software development company for about 10 years, working mainly with the startups and new product development. And while we were working on various customer projects, we worked on a telecom expense management, which was for US carriers. And this was around 2010, 2011, when mobility was becoming the, slowly the mainstream discussion. People started using smartphones, started using that for doing the business. And that's when we realized that, okay, there is an opportunity, there is a trend coming up, which is BYOD. And we started doing the R&D, we started building our product, and we launched a product called as One Mobility a couple of years ago. And that's where I think during the discussion probably we'll share more about our experience through this. About me, I grew up in Mumbai, spent about 15 years in US, learning different things. Back in Pune, I love being here and being with my team, which is in Pune. And I'll hand it over to Dhruv.
Right. Thank you, Smita.
Thanks. Hi. So I look after company Data Resolve, I think, and we are one of the early incubators from IIT Kharagpur. What we build is a product more with respect to monitor and manage risks coming from employees, largely with respect to the productivity, largely with respect to the frauds, leakage part of it, right? And in last 2 years, when we started our entry in the market, we have seen a good traction coming from various parts of the sectors where we have seen that productivity and information leakage has become very critical. So, and it's a software which you can push on every endpoint across the organization. So that's what we do in summary. Prior to this, building up this, I used to head the Asia Pacific region for IBM Global Consulting Services, where I was a leader for the cybersecurity practice. And while coming from that experience, we've realized that it's very important that we build something which is unique in this market. And I think I find this as a niche area, where we see a lot of companies struggled from being a global vendor. So I think that's been so far, and it's a good journey.
All right, thank you, Dhruv. As for my background, so currently I run the Bhau Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. It's an investment and incubation program run out of College of Engineering, Pune. I've been here 3 months. Prior to that, I was in US for the last 18 years. And I still spend half of my time in India and half in US. And my background for the last 15 years in US that I did was in investments. So initially I started off in private equity, where we did late stage growth equity deals. And last 5 years or 4.5, I've been managing director of a $50 million fund focused on doing seed stage investments in high impact startups. So we look at companies in virtual reality, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, healthcare IT, 3D printing, things that are really game changing, disruptive, and are at convergence of industries. So that's the area that I've been focused on. In India as well, we do investments. So that's what I bring to the table. And the goal here is to figure out what can the ecosystem provide. How do we nurture these startup companies, especially in a highly complex environment of cybersecurity or security startups? And the larger framework we are discussing today is the challenges and how to succeed and why some fail. And we're going to have few Q&A with the panelists here, but I want this to be more of an interactive session. So after a couple of questions or so, we'll open it up and let you guys get involved and share your experience and ask your questions, so these guys can provide more insights into what they are doing. But to kick it off, let me ask Smita first. So, there's a lot of reasons why companies can fail, especially in this space. It can be related to the business model, can be related to the government policies and regulations, can be related to the competitive framework. So, in your view, what is your experience has been in making your company a success and the challenges that you have faced?
Okay. So to talk about it, Jeet, probably half an hour will be less. But I'll concise that. I think it's just not the cybersecurity product, but any product can face these challenges when you're building it and when you take it to the market. So if you wait too long to take it to the market, that is sometimes could be a reason why you don't, why you're not successful with your launch. If you launch it too early, then it could be, you're not ready for the market. The second thing is, sometimes, when you go out with the product, you're always compared. So, you cannot say that I don't have a competition, right? So that's one thing to remember. And we should not get discouraged or should change the entire plan thinking that my product needs to solve the entire world's problems, right? You need to figure out what you're good at. What is the first stage product that you're taking to the market? What problems it solves? And you know what, this is probably, Dhruv will also say that people will ask you questions. How many customers do you have? Like same as when you're, come out of the college and you're looking for your first job, people ask you how much experience do you have? And you never have a good answer for it, right? But you have to be tough. You have to be very confident, passionate about what you're building and how it can solve the business problems, right? I think technology and the, its capability to solve the business problem, whether it's a small one or a big one. I think if you're able to articulate that, if you're able to present that, you can add value to the customer. I think that's where you start your journey with your customers. I would say there is no one way, one right answer, or one wrong way of doing things. I think you learn as you go. I'm still learning. Every customer situation is different. And you get compared, so be ready for that.
All right, thank you, Smita. Dhruv, share your general views on it and provide a little bit more clarity on the impact of, security industries, particularly being so nascent in India, and there's so much established competition from abroad, how do you actually try to deal with that?
I think this industry, if you look at it, when we started, right, coming from the IBM background, right, where you've been poised enough to get an easy entry, being a big brand and one of the leaders in the cybersecurity space, Gartner quadrant leader and all that, right? So I said it's become very easy to sell security in this country. You've been doing that, right? Suddenly the hat has changed and you know you're in a startup and you go to the same customer and you now started asking me 100 questions, right? Why Indian cybersecurity company, right? Because that's a taboo. You'll never buy Indian cybersecurity product, right? Because I've not seen a company going so successfully from this country to global, right? We have seen a lot of international vendors coming here and you saying, should I buy it? Do you have these XYZ ratings in place or not? Next to impossible to get those ratings the day one itself, right? So I think that's the first challenge we have seen where you have a lot of barriers. And at this stage, no customer has asked who are you, what kind of product you have built. But it's a taboo, right? So that's the first thing. And to overcome, we see that I think that we have to play the game differently, because if we continue playing the game the way typical vendor plays it, we will never be successful. So what we have done differently is, we say this is the concept we have built, irrespective of what we are doing, right? And say security, if you look at it, it's a dynamic problem, right? And you all agree to me, right? Today, if you look at it, the majority part of security space is governed by international vendors, largely at the gateway level, right? Wherever, when you pick up any cyber security report, it talks about threats, attacks, breaches, violations, and so many things, right? And the basic thing around this is everything is gateway driven, which means something is coming from outside to inside, right? What me and Smita are trying to solve a problem is inside to outside. So it's outside to inside is a game which controls 90% of the market. But there's a 10% which is in the current, but it's not 10, actually it's huge market. Looking at every research report, so more than 70% of the threats which are happening is from inside. So one, we say we have to pick up something which is more inside to outside. So that's the one way you're different from the league, where you're not solving outside to inside. That's one. Two, when we look at the market, what we also realize is that this market needs a lot of change. For an example, if I go to any customer, trust me, no customer today in this country or anywhere part of the world is happy with the security product he or she has invested in. Because he or she would have one problem saying, this is not helping me out. And if you have seen those who are on the customer side or vendor side, when we buy a product, the first thing what we do, create an Excel sheet, pick up 5 vendors, have 100 benchmarking criteria, and tick, 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 tick. Who scores the best? 100%, this guy is the best guy. Next, let's do a POC. Doesn't know how to do a POC. Doesn't know what use cases are required to deliver a POC. Doesn't know what kind of success criteria they should actually make the vendor sign. Finally, they buy the product. And trust me, after 2 years, he calls him back, boss, please replace the product. And this is a cycle which is on and on. So what we have realized, the co-creation is the game. That out of 100 things, no customer will ever use more than 20%. So if he's not going to use more than 20% of the actual available features, what is going to use? He's going to use some ABC, which is critical, unique problems to his business. I say, let's solve this problem. Let's go to the customer and say, hey, I may not be 100% equivalent to the global vendor. I may be 80% of the global market requirements, but you need only 20%. So why are you benchmarking me against the global vendor? But there are, out of 100, there are 5 more things, which is 105. Is this guy going to solve this problem? No. I will solve it for you. But yes, it has to be clearly linked in the contract, and I'm okay that my payouts are linked with those deliverables, because that my neck is in the game. And trust me, by the time you tell a customer, don't pay me, till the time I'll deliver, he will be very happy. Oh, 3 months, free mein mil raha saman le lete hain. Typical Indian way when we look at customers. Trust me, it helped us a lot. 90% of our success rate today is driven by these 2 things. Unique proposition with the co-creation model, and third thing which we have seen also work very well, move from the capex to opex. The time you add capex, it hits the cost, goes to the board for approval, who will factor the depreciation cost and all. I say opex, pay as per usage. You pay me. If you don't like it, switch it off. Trust me, no vendor globally I have seen, right, who will ever say, this is my product, I'm keeping it on the table. If you don't like it, 3 months, throw it off. Nobody will do that. I've seen vendors negotiating with customer 3-year contract, charge the money upfront for the 3 years. Product doesn't work for 6 months, the customer cries. In our case, I'll say I'll cry, but I'll not make you cry as a customer. And with that, what happened is, with this capex to opex pay as per usage model, we started beating the global vendors straight away. Because I have given the flexibility of co-creation, I have given the flexibility of pay as per usage, and I am straight away telling you exit model, I am straight away telling you, you pay me when I deliver. If I don't pay, it's free for you. It's a charity, I'm doing it for you. And trust me, all customers are good, they pay you on time. If you do the right job, deliver the things on time, I've never seen that somebody say, I'll not pay you. right? So I think these are 4 things, considering from the Indian market, are the drivers for change, which has helped us to beat a lot of international vendors, and that too the MNCs. I'm sorry to say that, but a lot of MNC customers are buying these products because of these 4 drivers. So that's the success story we have seen, that what helped us so far.
Yeah, that's really great insights in the way you organized it. But all 4 of them seems to have this underpinning that getting access to the customers is, you require credibility. You need that access. So how do you establish that credibility? How do you actually get to the table with the customer and say, let's co-create? So how do you, when the other vendor is willing to provide something where they have 100 features, only 20 will be used, but at least they're credible. So how do you actually navigate that?
Very good question, in fact. See, I think this market is still driven by relations. I completely agree. I think end of the day, it's your neck, it's your brand value which impacts. And I think one of the things which you would realize, and which is largely from the global vendors, you will not find an MD or a country manager of a company going in the first sales call. Because he's a media guy. He said, no, I don't want to go in the first meeting. Please take me in the last meeting when the ribbon has to be cut, or on a case study. I think that's the first thing. I said, no, we will go for the first sales call. We will go for the first meeting. Because at the end, if something goes wrong, he should know who's the last guy in the company, not the first guy. So I think that is one differentiator which creates an equity with the customer. And customers are very happy when they see some top guy coming from the first level cold call. I think that's one thing which helped us, which is my own experience, right? 2, and I think Smita could add to it, right? We pick up something which are first entry movers, low hanging carrots. See, in our whole experience, right? We build relationships, we nurtured them, we delivered them, and what we committed, we always paid on time, right? He said, let's pick up those 20 relations who will, just because of a name, he said, no, I'll trust this guy, I will support this guy. So I think those 20, 30, 40, whatever number it could be, right? Those are the ones who are the first angel customers for me. And these are from various sectors, right? And we picked up those angel customers to get our first logos. And one thing we were very clear, we will not do anything free of cost. Because we have seen other school of thought, you should get first 10 customers on board as an anchor and do whatever it requires. But I think it's important, if you're putting your sweat and blood, your team is putting your sweat and blood, you should get paid, right? Irrespective of at what price, but you should never do something FOC, right? So we decided we'll not do anything free of cost. So I think these are 2-3 things which helped us to basically get a equity with the customer. And once that equity has built, the third thing what we have done as part of it, I made my CIO as a hero. You would have seen a lot of times when these companies, they advertise, the global vendors, right? You see a lot of global advertisements coming. How many times you see there's not a country manager on the page, it's a customer who's talking on behalf of the company, citations. So we thought it's important that you leverage on your citations. And we have been so fortunate where we have seen customers are my brand ambassadors. They are the one who are actually helping us to connect with other CIO. Imagine you're calling a CIO for a meeting and suddenly a call already happened. Hey, I know you very well. One of my peer in the industry is already using your product and he liked it. Trust me, I don't need to do anything. I just have to go and meet him, understand, because he has done the POC, my previous customer, he has done the benchmarking against international brands. He bought it at X price. Is only have to go and negotiate on price. So it also helps you to reduce the sales cycle because your previous customers are happy, so make them happy. So what I'm saying is, if I correlate with my first question, the co-creation, if you commit something, deliver it on time, ensure the customer pays you on time, and make that customer as a hero. I think that's what every CIO or every large CXOs want, that he should be visible, he should be endorsed, he should be recognized. So I think recognition is the trump card we played, and I think it helped them, it helped us also, because we have delivered on time and they're happy. So I think these are a few things which we have seen helped us a lot.
You know, this is no wonder his company's success. You can hear the passion and the expertise and the commitment he has for his customer. And I'll move to Smita on the similar lines, but just to summarize what he said is, you got to leave your ego out the door. As the CEO or as the founder or as the top management, leave your ego out the door when you are building a business. And second thing is pound the pavement. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? You just got to build a brick at a time. Keep moving and not give up. So persistence is the second key here. And third is just having that vision and commitment and passion to deliver. And but I want to switch over and ask Smita on the same thing, because you lived in US for 15 years. You started the company over there, or your initial ideation process happened there, and some proof of concept happened there, I assume. So moving here to a new place, not having all the relationship in place, I'm assuming. So challenges you face in developing that credibility and access.
I would say it wasn't easy, but it's not impossible. Okay. So we went out in the market 2 years ago. What Dhruv said, I agree. I think a lot of times people have said, oh, it's great to meet the founders, right? Or it's great to meet the people who have put in everything to build this product and bring the solution to the, companies. So that one-on-one connection certainly helps. Not having contacts, you have to be, first of all, patient, persistent, as you said. You have to go meet people, you have to talk to them, talk about what differentiator you can bring, what value you can bring to the table. And, I have been talking to some companies for 2 years, right? And finally they trust me. After 2 years, they still see me. So they still see that the company exists, right? I think when they think from their perspective, IBM is not going anywhere, right? Cisco is not going anywhere, but Smita's company can vanish in a day. That's probably their thought processes, right? But if you work patiently with them, right? And you navigate through that whole process, no doubt every day you learn. As Dhruv said, being in their, being with the customer face to face makes a lot of difference. But I'll tell you, the same formula doesn't work in every company. You have to figure out your ways of building the relationship, making them trust you and your product. It's a journey. Every day you learn it, you improve it, they like it, and they trust you. So, though it is not easy, it's not impossible. That's what I would say. There are cultural differences, but I would say there are companies who probably have a very international culture. They would give you enough respect, though you are a vendor in that. And there, on the other end of the spectrum, you may struggle with certain companies where the culture is different. Now, you also have to, as a startup, figure out who's your target market, right? I think you have to then optimize that whole process. So I think we have learned a lot in 2 years.
Right.
And what finally, we have, enterprises as our customers, and there's a long way to go.
Well, that's a great insights in that. To move from the internal perspective of what it takes to create the company and grow it, let's talk about the market forces here that drive the success and failure. And one thing I want to focus on is, especially in this vertical, is competition. So we talked about credibility as a key factor, but what about competition? How do you co-opt that competition? And is there, because you said co-creation, but is there potential for collaboration to compete? Can we actually come together within our own ecosystems to provide that offering to the customer and say, okay, not only the thing you're using is 20% of what you're asking, but okay, I'll give you the 100 things that you are actually asking and you will end up using. So co-creating with your competitor and providing that offering. Is that even a possibility? Because I've seen some examples in US, but not sure about the model here.
Okay. So co-creation, I think, yes, it's an entry point. Co-creating with the global vendors looks difficult, very tough for 2-3 simple reasons. Obviously, they have a global process.
Or let's talk about more specific. Let's say other startups that are trying to get in, they're offering a complementary product to what you're offering. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. I think that's the next point which I was...
Sorry.
Thanks. Jeet, thanks for this question, in fact. So yes, I think there is a huge potential, and I think we have few friends sitting here who runs their own cybersecurity companies and they've grown big, right? And I see an opportunity if we all collaborate together and make a big force, right? I think beating the large giants, I don't think it will take much time, because see, it's a matter of the product has a capability, right? You have a development center in India, and trust me, every customer, when you look at an MNC story, right? Why I'm using MNC? Because I come from the background, spend my whole life working with an MNC giant, right? Where everything is driven by the scope of work document, clearly written in black and white. Something changes left and right, sorry, you have to pay me, change request gets initiated, pay me extra money. When we go to the customer, I said, this is I signed because my investors may need it when tomorrow I land up for a due diligence for Series A, Series B and so on. But for me to delivery, I don't even look at it. I say, customer, is there a problem? Pick up the phone, go there. Don't even ask whether he will pay me or not. Because if you solve the problem, if he or she is in a pain, trust me, the sustenance of a customer in cybersecurity is very expensive. if you don't support the customer well on time. And if you support them well on time, out of the scope of work, trust me, he will not go anywhere. Even if they are in the darkest problem, they will not trouble you the way typical customer troubles any vendor, right? So I think that is one very important factor which always helped you. And I think building a closed ecosystem whereby all these companies come together on a platform, they all collaborate, create a bigger story from the product or from the framework standpoint. I think it's going to be a very big game changer for the country, for the industry, for the customers as well.
You know, that's because that's a model that actually needs to evolve for us to be more competitive and leverage the expertise that are siloed right now. And I think Pune provides that environment, but to take it to the next level, because this kind of collaboration cannot happen without a ecosystems support. So in your experience, and what do you think about the ecosystem in Pune that brings together a forum like this, where the people who are of the like mind, interested and are in the industry can actually collaborate and think about ideas? Have you any success with that? Your general feedback on what this experience has been.
I would say that I have been involved in very limited, activities, because I think some of you who are running the small organizations, you're all you're wearing a different hat every day, and you're so sucked into your own operations. But unless you go out, collaborate with other companies or the other entrepreneurs and your business colleagues, you can't make a progress. So the NASSCOM events, the DACI events, they certainly have helped, because these are focused events towards the cybersecurity, the product companies. So this is where we certainly get to meet like-minded people, or where there is a opportunity for collaboration. But I think we all are online, and I think what we have done is, in terms of collaborating with other companies, is you analyze your customers' problems, right? And no product is a silver bullet. You cannot go out and say that I can solve all your problems, right? And that's where we actually start looking for collaborators, and that's where we have seen a lot of success. So there are some companies with whom in Pune I'm working very closely, and we are looking at our business plans and opportunities together. So that has helped, but it has been mainly, an initiative from our side. We have taken advantage of such kind of events.
Right. This is, I really want to emphasize on this point, because this is what I've noticed in India is lacking in the ecosystem, is a platform. And NASSCOM does a great job, DSCI does a great job, and Pune actually is on the forefront of the country in enabling these things. We got TIE here, we got CIA, now the new kid on the block, Bhau Institute, and we'll be doing incubation and investments and focused on high impact verticals like cybersecurity. Because in US, if you look at it, the ecosystem nurtures these startups that are coming up, and that kind of nurturing is needed, and it is happening more here, and it will get more structured and more refined and more targeted as we move forward. Because as a overall ecosystem, your mentors, co-founders, investors, entrepreneurs, service providers, and all these things need to come together for an early stage startup or a small business to grow into what it can be to compete, because entrepreneurs can't do it alone all the time, right? It takes an army to move a mountain. It's not easy. And so we need to focus on seeing how we can develop this ecosystem further, and we need to capitalize and leverage whatever is available in our ecosystem. That's the most important element. And so, for example, Maharashtra government is doing, several initiatives right now, and Digital Maharashtra is one of those, where they're going to be allocating a lot of funding to the security systems. And so need to keep abreast of these things, need to keep thinking about Pune as a startup city or a smart city, right? So how do we leverage that? And this is a whole discussion that we can get into, but the last thing I want to touch on is, since we talked about credibility, we talked about collaboration, competition, and co-creation, last thing is capital. How do you actually navigate, and if there is such a source of capital available, and how do you even acquire it or suffer because of lack of it. And I'll start with you, Smita. Your experience with either bootstrapping and the availability of funds for startups and small companies like yours.
I will start saying that, answer by saying that I haven't been paid in last few years. I haven't shopped in last few years. So the story starts at that. But jokes apart, it is very, very challenging. You know, if you didn't have enough funds to pick up the pace, right? See, great product, your great passion, all that is good. But if you could not commercialize that product, if you didn't have the commercial success, then that business dies, right? So you do need funds. And typically, you know, the challenges that I have seen in India, you know, there is a shift of thought process in terms of being passionate about building, like being a creator more than a consumer, right? So people are getting interested in working with startups or, you know, doing something innovative. But I think money takes the priority over the
Right.
passion and the, you know, experience of creating something. And that's where entrepreneurs like me, we really struggle because we cannot, you know, match what the large companies are able to pay to these, you know, the internal team.
Right.
And this is the internal problem, right? And if you didn't have enough funds, right, nobody is happy. Then you see the revolving door. You work with, you know, young developers, young technologists, you train them well, they start contributing, and suddenly you realize, okay, their needs are more than passion, their needs are money, right? And that's where, you know, one of the challenges is, and this is internal problem. But, you know, to the other problem that, you know, you face is, there is a large market. Now we are into enterprise mobility management, which has a large space, you know, opportunity. It doesn't matter what size of the enterprise it is. Even if it is like 20 people company, people are using devices, they are accessing their data on it, they do need some kind of management. So all that requirement is there, but if you didn't brand your company enough, right? If you didn't spend enough on, you know, branding and marketing, your customers don't know you. So that's another problem, you know, you struggle with. So, you know, if you're too early in the market with a solution, then educating customer is a long process that needs your, you know, a lot of resources. And if the market shifts and there is a requirement in the market for your product, the customers need to know you. So from, and other thing I would say, just to conclude this is, since we are in the security vertical, right, and the space is evolving so rapidly, the R&D budget becomes your, you know, the main hurdle, where your competition may have, you know, 200, 800 people just in the R&D department. Right. So these are 2 or 3 areas where the funds are really critically required. And if you don't have those, then your you know, pace of progress is really slow.
Right. You know, these are great points, and I would like to summarize it by saying a couple of things here, right? First is, the key takeaways, yeah, capital is challenging, but capital is available. Risk capital is available because investors go where the opportunity is. And if we, as we listen to our panelists here, Dhruv and Smita, if we develop the credibility and have a unique selling proposition and are willing to pay the price in terms of sweat equity, then there's no reason that smart money won't come the door. Ecosystem in Pune has been developing. Thai has done a great job over the years, well, you know, with Mahajan sir here. And so there's a lot happening. And, you know, Bhau is a new kid on the block, as I mentioned. And I know for a fact there's a lot of money looking to get deployed in this space in India, from government sources as well as private sector. So we just need to figure out how do we navigate these pathways without losing the focus. And the ecosystem is developing. It will provide the value and the services and the opportunities, but it's up to the entrepreneurs to get out of that mindset of do it alone. We got to leverage our ecosystem and leverage what's available and go from there. We only have a few minutes left because it's an exciting, interesting discussion, but we'll open up the floor for any questions that may be. Yeah.
So my question is to Dhruv and Smita. So being a consumer, from a consumer perspective, my pain point as startup is like what I see. So you have your option of OpEx model and you have support like on the phone whenever I call up and you guys are there. That's too good, that's too lucrative. But my pain point is, I'm not sure, down the line 5 years or 3 years when your product is with us, you're going to be in the market or not? You're going to be acquired by somebody or not? So when you get acquired, your IP gets dissolved and the whole support system and whole delivery model that you're talking about gets dissolved. We don't get that, what you're saying, because you've been acquired and managed by somebody else. Yeah. And if you are not, then probably you're crabbed off, which like most of the company startups happen. I mean, we are talking about few which fly off, but then there are many, there are hundreds of them which can't, due to several other reasons. So that's the pain point of a consumer, which I think is quite right to address when talking with you guys. Like, we trust startups, we trust people made in India, but how do we address these situations where down the line 3 years, 5 years, you guys either either you are scrapped off or you are.
What's your feedback?
Very good point. See, typically when you look at it, these are non-standard ones, which are but from the market standpoint. But yes, this has started popping up because we have seen situations where a startup is getting acquired, and I'll not name few of them. And what happened is suddenly the contract which was signed by the earlier founders or promoters, right, ceased to exist, and the customer is on the tougher side because his support says X, now you have to say Y because the cost is 2X for the same support cost. Could be one of the challenges I've seen in one of the situations in the past, right? So one, and I think these are questions which are coming to us every second contract we sign now. So I think it's a very good point. The way we look at it, I think obviously I or nobody can define at what stage you get next series, or at what stage you get acquired, or what stage I want to exit, or what stage I will continue, right? I think all these are all thought processes driven by various IQ, EQ, and a lot of other factors, right? But the way to mitigate this problem is, I think there has to be strong contract. In one of the recent contracts we signed with one of the companies where we put our source code in an escrow account. So if you get diluted and there's a clear definition of under what circumstances this need to be exercised, right? So one condition was when the company is going bankrupt, in the bankruptcy stage, 1. 2, when the company is getting dissolved and you are no more going to support this product line because of the acquisition stage and where the customer is in a need, right? So yes, in that case, with the proper knowledge transfer, with a lot of clauses we have added to the contract, right? So that's the one way we have seen to address this problem, and customer appreciate it. Typically, if you look at it in a startup, when you put your source code in the escrow cover, right, the new prospect investor will definitely raise a question that how come we have 5 contracts where everything is in escrow? It shows the level, but at the same time, to win the customer confidence, I think it is important. So what I say, I respect your question completely. It's a very important point. And with the stories which happened in last 1 or 2 years where a lot of companies got into a problem because the company got acquired or decided to shut down their India operations, right, and the customer or at the receiving end. So we are able to address this problem like this in a contract by itself, right. So that's more on the contractual part of it, right. But at the same time, I think it's also important from the customer side when you are engaging in dialogue with the company, right. Also important to understand the roadmap life cycle, right. I remember one of the cases where we were discussing, so we were competing with one of the global brands in the customer environment, and we were at the losing end for reasons being an Indian company, startup, no enough citation in that space and all, right. So that the only trump card which I played, which worked very well for me in that situation, I said, you please ask this company what is the next 3 years roadmap. Trust me, no global OEM will hand over the roadmap just like that, just to acquire a contract, because it is straight away the contractual violation, or it's a straight away the internal code of ethics where I'm not supposed to share, right? I say, I will sit with your roadmap, we sign this roadmap, you give me 3-year contract, and I'll ensure if something goes, you tell me what is the penalty, I'll accept it. So I think you need to have that conviction, because I know the risk which I'm signing, and this risk has to be owned by me as an individual while running the show, right? So I think these are certain things which helped us. Might not be 100%, I don't have 100% answer to your question, but these are the ways where we see customer gets a comfort of longevity of the company, looking at the stability, how strong the promoters wanted to take this company to the next level. And obviously there's a risk which are involved where we are trying to mitigate it in terms of escrow account or putting a penalty around it and all. So that's how we address these problems off and on. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm able to answer your question, but I'm just sharing an experience.
No, thank you, Dhruv, for that. Because that it's the same thing, an investor has that question about safety of the money. It's the same thing as a customer, like would your product still be there for them later? But it's up to the entrepreneur to devise those creative solutions and provide the comfort. And that's very, the entrepreneur has to have the skills, knowledge, expertise, and commitment, and the right ethical orientation to support its investor as well as the customer. But moving on, any other questions? Okay, so, all right, thank you so much for joining us for this session. And as part of the ecosystem, I really want to emphasize the point that leverage what you can and connect where you can. Globally integrated and globally connected for us to succeed in this environment. And Reach TIE is great, Pune Connect is great, CI is there, Bhau Institute is there. Access to investors, entrepreneurs, co-founders, advisors, validation of ideas, and customers, service providers, everything is there. You don't have to solve your problems alone. There are experts out here who have committed their, expertise, and either because they're giving back or they really enjoy solving problems. So reach out, leverage, learn, and let's, co-create and do something special here in India for India. All right? Thank you.
Going against all the odds. For this session, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Vikas Barai, CEO, iBiz, now acquired by Cigital. Mr. Vikas. Mr. Karthik, Director, Emerging Businesses in Akamai. This session would be moderated by Mr. Vishwas Mahajan. I would like to request Mr. Vishwas.